Hi, good morning, everyone. It's Michelle Silverman-Bedell from Silverson's Realty.
Leslie Jones, attorney.
So today we're going to speak about what could derail a closing, what problems could arise at the last minute that either could prevent it or delay a closing. I'll let you start today.
Okay, so often there are a lot of things, but mostly what I see is at the walkthrough. That seems to be the primary delay of a closing, or at least a stressor right before closing.
Right.
So my recommendation to all parties is have the agent that represents you go through the property a day or two before, make sure everything's cleaned out properly, make sure that things that maybe you don't notice because you've lived there X amount of years, that person is able to see in a better light what's going on and maybe give you some direction, and not make sure that you remove all the furniture, make sure that everything's broom swept and everything's in working order, so that you don't walk into a closing and then it gets delayed or there's negotiations going on.
Right.
So that's the primary one, but we have things that pop up at the last second where you think you have total clearance as a buyer's attorney, and things can pop up, such as we just had one yesterday,
right.
Michelle and I, with an issue with an estate tax that popped up, and
from the
title, and everyone had thought it was cleared up, and it really wasn't. Everyone had to do some very fast legwork, but it worked out. So things happen, and you try to work through it,
right.
but it can potentially delay a closing,
right.
and that is definitely, so everyone makes plans on a certain timeline, and unfortunately things pop up, and
right.
you have to be prepared for that. Also, as far as you can have a defective mortgage that pops up, and you're really
you're
waiting on a banker to someone in a back office somewhere to take care of this defective mortgage, and you're kind of beholden to that
right.
party. Like Chase, I had one the other day with a defective mortgage, and we had to go through Chase lien research department, and you have to wait on them until you get that document, and then it gets re-recorded. It's nothing, it's just a timing thing. So
right.
as soon as we see it, we try to deal with it, but it's sometimes you're sort of, it's out of your hands, and
right.
that's some of the things I see.
Well, for sure. I mean, I see a lot of, let's say, issues at the walkthrough where things just are not emptied, the house is not emptied, or things that they promised to fix or repair were not fixed. Often people, we have a list of inclusions that's written into a contract, and often people remove things, such as a light fixture that was supposed to be included, and they decide suddenly, I guess at the last minute, or they forgot, and they have it removed, and they don't even cap it or put a builder's fixture, in that place of the other fixture. I've seen problems where people remove, let's say, a window seat, and it just doesn't close. It happened to me, a number of years ago, and everything fell apart at the last minute. The other thing I think that you have to be careful about if you're buying a property, that you don't take out within the last few weeks or 2 weeks of a mortgage of closing. You don't take a car loan out. You don't buy an enormous amount of furniture in preparation for moving. You just don't do it, because often the bank will check the finances, or do a new credit check, and they'll see that you have all this debt. So that really could interfere with the closing. It happened with clients of mine many years ago, and luckily her father was able to come up with the last minute and pay cash for the house, and they ended up not needing a mortgage. So you really have to be careful. You don't do anything to impact your credit or your debt history really within the last few weeks of a closing. Also, I think that what could come up the last few weeks, right, and this has happened to us, where there are title issues, or that there are liens that we didn't know about, or unsatisfied mortgages, where many years ago things were sold off from one bank to another, and an unsatisfied mortgage can really also, I think, can derail a closing or interfere with a closing on time. So you have a lot of different issues, and I think also sometimes unexpected prices or unexpected costs that the buyer was not aware of or did not anticipate can, I think, also interfere with his closing.
Right, absolutely, and also line up, just a simple thing, line up movers, but be aware that movers have to have some flexibility if something changes
Right.
in the plan, and then it's hard to get a mover again, and that, in itself can delay. It seems simple and but that's a very crucial point when you are scheduling a closing, but sometimes these closings come up fast or they change, and everyone
Right.
has to have flexibility, including the mover that you hire. I see that come up all the time, and it's sort of, seems ancillary to the process, but they're the ones who actually get out and clean up, get everything out of the house, and that's very important. So that's a simple thing.
Right.
The bigger scale things from an attorney's point of view are definitely liens, judgments. I've had IRS debt that pops up, and that's
Right.
nearly that's not something you can clear up in a week.
Right.
It's something that takes a lot of phone calls, and it's a big process, and it's not going to be resolved quickly.
No.
So we had one with even a co-op that delayed our closing years ago. You remember that it popped up a day or two
Right.
before,
Right.
and
You don't know. Yeah.
it was really a challenge to get it resolved. We actually ultimately got it resolved, but it definitely put the closing off a few days, which obviously wasn't good for anyone. And but ultimately closed, and these things can be resolved. It's just you have to have flexibility and realize that the on or about date is just simply an on or about date. Either side really has the 30 days latitude to push back, and you have to be able to clear title. So,
Right. Right. It's happened to me also with the house that we're going to be selling or closing on shortly, but there was a title issue that came up, and ultimately, although we had an accepted offer and the contracts actually were signed, the buyer backed out, and because he could not deliver a clean title, and we had to take the house off the market and then put it back on. So it's very important that if there are any liens or issues with your title, that maybe you do a title report even before you sell it, or just have an idea of what's going on, because often people don't know. It's not that they do it intentionally. They often don't know what's lurking in the title reports. And buyers often, it would be a good idea, we've mentioned this before, to just kind of check the title or do a basic title, not maybe a full title search, before you sign a contract to eliminate any problems down the line. So these are definitely issues that we like to avoid, and because everybody looks forward to buying the property and selling it and a smooth closing. So if you have any questions, feel free to give us
reach
a
out.
call.
Yes.
We'd be happy to speak with you. And Maria, we missed you today from Citizens Bank, but we'll see you next week.